We're back, boys! Amulet is back, and it's cooking straight fire this time. Today, we're diving into Book 5. And I'm gonna be real with you guys. I think the story gets really good. I don't know what it is about this specific book and the second one coming after this, but the author freaking locked in. So now, without further ado, let's jump face first into this. We start off in the past, before the war that caused the city of Cialis to be lifted into the sky. We see Max, the main villain from the last book. You know, the guy who... his last name is Griffin and looks like a knockoff Goku figure. We see him as a young boy, hanging out with his friend, Lyria, an elf. We learn that Max's father is very controlling and is only concerned with training Max to take his place as the next leader of the city guard. We also get a glimpse of Vigo as a kid, attending the academy to one day become a part of the Stonekeeper Council. But the conflict between the elves and humans is heating up, and war is on the horizon. Lyra says she can't see Max anymore, and tells him her parents were taken away by the guard. So Max breaks into the jail to free them, and reunites them with Lyra. He pays off a ship to get them out of the city, but the guard catches on, and opens fire on the ship. No!
Max Griffin, you have been sentenced to 50 years in the ice prison of Corthon for aiding in the escape of war prisoners. You will also face trial and prison for your actions, leading to the deaths of 4 soldiers. Before we send you off, do you have any last words?
You will all regret this.
Get him out of my sight.
But turns out that ice prison he was talking about pretty much sucks balls, because Max ends up escaping, albeit very injured. He's on the brink of death when his amulet begins to speak to him, telling him that it can save him, but only if he gives up control to it. And then we cut to present day, where Max and a large group of elves are on their way to the very same ice prison from the flashback. They break into the prison and find a massive mountain giant engulfed in ice. Then the Elf King emerges from a carriage, and Max tells him how this creature is his friend. Its name is Kronos. Wait, what the... Kronos? This is... Kratos? When Max was in prison, he became friends with Kronos, and promised he would set him free if he ever came back. Kronos will help Max in his efforts to aid the Elf King, so Max frees him and gives him a piece of the Motherstone amulet. And this makes Kronos the first official Stonekeeper to join the new Stonekeeper Council under the power of the elves. Max and Kronos get reacquainted, and the Elf King gives them their first order together: begin a march on the city of Frontiera and kill everyone. But back in the Flying City, we cut to Trellis walking through the woods when he spots a small elf child who mysteriously disappears. But before Trellis can investigate, he gets schooled by Emily, who he was training with before he spotted the child. After that top-tier girl boss moment, they all get called back to the council building. You see, Emily and Vigo are all who remain of the Guardian Council, so they have assumed some amount of control over the city. But when Emily and Trellis get to the academy, Vigo shows them he has discovered old recordings from the days of the Stonekeeper Academy. In the final recording, they see Max as a young boy talking to Silas, Emily's great-grandfather. Emily is confused about how Max can be so young in a recording that was taken over 50 years ago. Trellis notes that he's heard of Stonekeepers having the power to travel back in time, and believes that Max must have figured this out. But Vigo clarifies that that isn't the case. He explains that they can't go back in time, but they can enter the void. Okay, now in the last book, the void was not explained well at all, and it made my brain itch. You see, in the last book, the premise was that Emily was supposed to go into the void with other Stonekeepers so she could be tested, but they didn't even end up going into the void because it was all a trap, which was orchestrated by Max, which also makes it kind of confusing to decipher what was real from what was considered the void. So I was kind of scratching the back of my head in the last book because they mentioned the void, but they didn't elaborate enough on it. So basically, to sum it up in Vigo's words, he describes the void as a dreamscape made of Stonekeeper memories, a place where Stonekeepers can go to examine their past and communicate with one another. Apparently, Silas discovered the void and had the idea that it could be used to change reality. However, his belief was overshadowed by his desire to change his past. So it isn't technically possible to change reality or go back in time. You can just do stuff with memories, I guess. Silas ended up spreading his misconception to young stonekeepers and encouraged them to enter the void without truly understanding it. He was wrong in doing this, since there are unknown dangers and penalties for using the void. But amid all this, Trellis still states that he would be willing to pay any price if it gave him the chance to fix the mistakes of his ancestors. But Vigo just calls him stupid because that's a stupid thing to say. What are you talking about?
I do not know how Max has retained his youth, but I did know him once. He was a student here at the academy. We were classmates. If we're dealing with the same young man I knew back then, our real troubles have only just begun.
Meanwhile, Naven is joining the Cialis pilot force, where he gets to operate big Gundam suits. That's where he meets Allison from the last book. Turns out her father is the captain of the whole operation. They're happy to have Naven aboard, since he's the only person with real experience driving these things. Since, he freaking drove an actual house Gundam, But as Naven is getting enrolled, Vigo and Emily discover that the city of Frontera has been completely destroyed, just as the Elf King ordered. They anticipate that the elves will strike the city of Lucian next, so they all load up their Gundams and get ready to fight the elves to protect the city. And while all of this has been going down, Emily has been treated as royalty, and Trellis remains in the shadows. He asks his brother Lugger how to access the events of the past, like Vigo mentioned, but Lugger refuses to tell him and says that he should listen to the others. Why should I listen to them when they don't listen to me?
Oh my god, he's so cool. I just want to paint my face blue and grow pointy ears and wear armor and kill people with swords. He's my idol!
If you couldn't notice, I really like Trellis. But after that, they all start heading for the city, leaving Misket, Leon, and Emily's mom behind. While they're all on the ships, Allison and Naven get to know each other a little bit more, and Emily goes to bed for the night, and once again, sees her amulet in her dreams. The amulet still has a chessboard out, and Emily questions if it's still waiting for the game to begin, since it was preparing the board the last time we saw it. But the game has already begun. It's only waiting for the first move. Emily asks the amulet who Max is working for, and why. It tells her that the Elf King must have persuaded him somehow to work with him. But Emily suspects that the Elf King and Max are under the control of someone or something. She asks the voice for help, but it replies, saying that soon enough, she will find out the answer for herself. Then she wakes up and meets with Vigo, where they start chatting, and all of a sudden,
we get some lore dropped on us.
Vigo tells her about how he once had a wife and child. His wife died when his son was 10. And he was left to raise his son alone. He passed his amulet down to his son, but once Vigo's son heard about the potential to change the past from Silas, he tried to use the void to bring his mother back. He attempted to go back in time, but only ended up being put into a deep sleep, where he didn't wake up for days. During that time, he would speak to someone in his sleep. When he eventually woke up, he looked terrified, and then left and never came back. Vigo assumed that his son believed he was talking to his mother, but realized that he was really talking to the stone. Just like how Emily has been talking to her stone. While they're talking, the plane they're on suddenly gets attacked by Kronos and Max. I'm sorry, freaking Kronos is such a stupid name. It is literally Kratos, but Kronos. Are you kidding me? You're not the god of war, buddy. You're not him. You're not that guy, buddy. You're not that guy. Emily rushes to find Trellis, but discovers that he has recreated the same ritual Vigo's son used to go back in time. So there's no way of waking him up now. Yep, they're officially screwed. But back to Naven. He and Allison get into a ship and start attacking Kratos. God damn! But as they do, Max goes full Omni-Man, flying straight up to their ship, ready to destroy them. That's when Vigo shows up and stops him. Max lands on their ship superhero style and comes face to face with Vigo and Emily, who is carrying a sleeping Trellis. All three of them attack each other simultaneously, destroying one of the wings of the ship, and causing Emily, Vigo, and Trellis to fall dramatically to their deaths. And that's the end. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Consider subscribing and like it. But instead of all of them being turned into red ground beef spaghetti when they hit the ground, we see Trellis wake up in an unknown place. He walks outside and sees the same elf boy he encountered in the forest a day ago. Trellis asks the boy why he's been following him, but the boy responds that he's not allowed to speak with him, and directs Trellis to his Uncle Virgil. So Trellis makes his way to the house upstream to meet this mysterious Uncle Virgil. Once inside, Uncle Virgil explains that he saw Trellis fall from the sky. Trellis insists he must find his friends, but Virgil informs him that there was no one else with him when he fell. Despite this, Trellis storms out. At this moment, a young lugger pushes past him, revealing that the little boy is actually Trellis from the past. My eyes widened and my jaw literally dropped when I was reading this in my library computer lab. And then I started frantically throwing the computer screen at nearby people. But anyway, you see, Trellis doesn't fully remember his past, which also is a part of the story that isn't really expanded upon yet. So it's very interesting to see him tap into those lost memories. Next, Trellis agrees to help Uncle Virgil organize some books at the Elven Library. As they enter the library, Trellis learns that the mask that the Elf King wears represents a creature called the Earl King. Then, Uncle Virgil shows Trellis some of his recent findings from reading through their elven history. We see a past king whose reign was tyrannical and who was said to be possessed by his amulet. This raises the question of whether the amulet has a voice. To this, Uncle Virgil reveals a book that speaks about the voice. It explains that with the amulet's power, stonekeepers can communicate and travel to different planes of existence parallel to our own. So it's basically talking about the void. But when stonekeepers do this, they may find themselves under the influence of a dark and governing spirit, better known as the Voice. Uncle Virgil mentions that he has seen his brother, the Elf King, speak to this voice. The voice has always appeared during times of war and strife. Furthermore, the current Elf King was also born 500 years ago, exactly when the last evil possessed Elf King died. Clearly, it's not just a coincidence. Finally, Trellis flips to the back of the book and finds out this book was written by Silas himself. Oh my gosh! It's all coming together, baby. It's all coming together. That's what we're talking about. Woo! Trellis is confused about why his Uncle Virgil is telling him all this. But when he asks, Virgil reveals that he knows that he's Trellis from the future and wants to make sure he knows all this so he can stop the voice and save their elven culture. Just then, a creepy noise comes from everywhere. It's the voice. So Virgil leads Trellis out of the library to escape, but gets attacked by a black smoke creature, which apparently is a malevolent spirit, which are common in the void. Trellis escapes into a lake, still being followed by the creature. He resurfaces from the water, and we randomly get a high-quality panel of Trellis screaming. I don't know why, but this panel goes extra hard for some reason. I told you, bro, the author locked in for this one. Just then, Emily appears and blasts away the creature with her magic. She tells Trellis that they're in his memories, and in the real world, they're still falling. So Trellis needs to wake up in order to save them. So Emily blasts him away in the void, and he wakes up and creates a force field to stop all three of them from plummeting to their deaths. But when they collect themselves, they realize that Emily is still asleep and must still be in the void. So Trellis enters back into the void to get her out. When he enters, he finds that Emily is spying on Max's memories. The same time at the beginning of the book where he broke out of the ice prison and was faced with a question from the voice. We finally see that Max gave over full control to his amulet so he could survive and get revenge. And when I say amulet, I mean the voice. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. After seeing all that, Trellis and Emily quickly leave the void, and Emily realizes that she's been speaking to the voice this entire time when she thought she was talking to her stone. The voice simply just exists in the amulet and in the void. So every time Emily has been talking to this strange creature, she was talking to the enemy. Trellis also realizes that his ancestors aren't to blame for all the crimes committed, but in actuality, it was the voice manipulating and controlling his father. Then they get picked up by Naven and Enzo, and they head back to the ship. Meanwhile, we see Max heavily injured from the fight lying on the ground. The voice demands for Max to get back up, but all of his bones are broken. So the voice mends his bones and continues to manipulate Max to do what it wants, making Max believe that this is all for the sake of Lyra's death at the beginning of the book. So he gets back up and continues to comply with the stone like he's its slave, which he pretty much is. Then we get one of the coldest endings in all of kid book history. Show yourself! Come out and face me, you coward!
Excuse me. My master believes you are better off joining him in his fight. And he wants you to know it's not too late to surrender. So what do you say, Stonekeeper?
So you want to play? Fine. Let's play. Goosebumps, man! That was freaking straight fire! Anyways, that's the end of the 5th book, which was kind of girthy when it came to expanding the lore and explaining things about the past and the void. Can't wait to see what happens next, though. Anyhow, sorry it took so long to come out with a video. I'm still just a baby in school, and lately I've been fighting for my life, so don't expect regular upload schedule, okay? I'ma just post stuff. Alright, that's it. Subscribe. Bye!